That being said, what we try to do, and this of course makes it challenging for us, is that when there is an entity that is having fiscal problems, and believe me, Tiburon is not the only one in the state that is having fiscal problems. There are other even municipalities and counties that have budget problems. They run into snags, just like you have. And so what we try to do is we try to work with the board and the staff to get the budgets put in place and organized and functioning. Now, Tiburon has not had an approved operating budget for the last couple of fiscal years. You all know that. And so the question is, well, what happens when DFA does not approve the budget? Typically when there are enough resources to keep the entity or the local government operating, we basically let them operate on what we would call a continuing resolution, kind of like what the federal government does. You probably know a little bit about it, probably more than I do. But that basically means that you would be operating under the same parameters dollar-wise as what you had in your last approved operating budget. But when you have a situation such as Tiburon, where there are not enough resources as there once were to meet the needs and the expenses of your community, then we can't really say, or justify saying that it is operating under a continuing resolution. And so this proposes unique challenges to us, and that's why we are specifically getting involved with this, is because we want to work with you. In other words, like I said a while ago, we're not here to micromanage you, but we're here to offer our services, offer our help as best we can to team up with you, to team up with your board and to team up with your staff in order to get the fiscal solvency going so that you can have the services provided to you that you should be getting. And so we're here as a part of a team that we would like to think, are doing our best, along with a lot of other responsibilities that we have to keep up with. But when it gets as serious as it has gotten here, we recognize that there has to be some involvement. Now, we have in the past recognized the seriousness of this and what has been going on, and like I mentioned a while ago, my director and I personally came over here about a year and a half ago to work with staff and to meet with some of you folks. And then several months later, just before the bankruptcy in court was filed, we had a meeting in Santa Fe, and we had one of your board members at the time on speakerphone at that meeting, and we pulled all of the resources of DFA that were available to us at that meeting, including Steve Archibek from the State Auditor's Office, and I think he's listening in by phone, if I'm not mistaken. And at that meeting, we had local government division, we had our DFA attorney, we had the representative from the State Auditor's Office, we had the director of the State Board of Finance, trying to see if we could come to a resolution to see how we would at least be able to figure out a way to come up with the resources that you would need to finish the operations of your fiscal year. And so we were proceeding on that point to try to get all the help that we could that was necessary. And at that point, that is when the district decided to file for bankruptcy. Well, once that happened, we pulled back because we did not want to do or say or involve ourselves in anything that would in any way interfere with what the court was doing during the bankruptcy proceedings. And so we kind of kept a hands-off policy during that time. And then when we found out that it was no longer in court, that's when we started trying to get, going on trying to get the assistance to you that we hope that we can provide to you, and that's why we're here today. Now, during the course of that time, we were, our analyst, Becky, had been working with your staff and with a couple of the board members, I believe, to try to keep in touch with respect to how things were going, especially with providing some proposed budgets for Timbero, which we knew that we were not going to be able to approve had they been able to be balanced. But at that point, and even now, we don't know that there are enough resources to balance your budget. But that has not stopped the communication between us and your staff. And so, we've been going back and forth and taking a look at the numbers and some of the proposals and whatnot. And so we have not, during that time that you were in bankruptcy, we did not scratch you off and write you off and forget about you. We have maintained contact. But now that that part of this journey is over with, as far as the courts are concerned, as far as I know, we're here to get back and really try to get a little bit more hands-on to see about getting you folks back into the fiscal solvency that you need to be in. And so we have provided some narrative for your board to look at. We have provided some forms, and of course you all have the handout that we gave you with respect to our synopsis of our handout, and it's basically giving a typical guideline for a special district such as yours as to how each of these things proceed with respect to the development of your budget. Now, with respect to the budget, the state and our local governments, for the most part, operate on a fiscal year basis. We don't operate on a calendar year basis. We operate from July 1st through June 30th of each year, so that is what your fiscal year is based on. And so the budget that we are looking at or hoping to try to develop would be for the current fiscal year, the one that started July 1st of 2008 and ends June 30th of 2009. And so we want to make sure that the finances are being recorded and kept up as much as possible. We know that there's some catching up to do. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to see, that the bank statements are being correctly reconciled, that sort of thing, that the financial reports that are due to our office are being realigned and maintained, that the operating budget, can get to us hopefully with enough resources for us to be able to approve it. And so, there's a lot of work that goes into this, and there's a lot of concern that goes into it, both on your part and on our part. And this is something that we don't take lightly. We really do not take this lightly. And we want to try to provide the assistance that we have authorized to us by the statute with respect to our part. Now, we cannot answer all of the concerns and all of the issues outside of the budget and finances of your district. If there are other concerns, with the Environment Department or whatever the case may be, those are things that we cannot allow ourselves to get into because we don't have that authority. But when it comes to the budget and the finances, we will try to get involved, and we'll try to be as hands-on as we possibly can to try to get to that point. And so we will take a look at any available cash balances. We want to take a look at what available fees and taxes and resources might be available to fund your projected expenditures, the expenditures that you calculate you would need in order to properly administer your district within the resources that you have, that sort of thing. And so one of the things that we cannot approve is a budget that is in deficit. If you do not earn or have the resources to meet your expenditures, then you either have to increase the tax base or the resource base, or cut expenditures, or do both to try to get into balance and get out of that deficit. And so we know that this is a challenge on both our parts, and we realize that this is something that we're both going to have to work on as diligently as we can. And so what we're here to do is to assure you that we're not trying to sidestep anything. We are trying to view things as realistically as we can. And we want to try to work with you and with your board and with your staff to make sure that your finances are placed back in order so that you can begin the services that you deserve to get. And so that's really what our purpose is over here.